Pravit Moy Druzy. I'm back. Welcome, my friends. Had a little time to downshift after graduation and after the ill-fated Q&A that I was going to try to just cut corners, and so now I've had a little time to recover. Okay, I'm going to do the week recap. And again, this will be short as well, just because I usually do that and then answer your questions. So last Saturday, the 29th of April, Prigozhin was threatening to pull out of Bakhmut. Now that was fascinating to me because it was about a month, almost a month and a half ago, where during a Q&A, somebody was asking me, so is Bakhmut going to fall anytime soon? I said, I just don't see it. I mean, they're chipping away at it. They're still chipping away at it, but they're holding them there. They're pinning them in place. But Prigozhin threatening to pull out is part of that ongoing saga where he's fighting. There's infighting between the higher ups in the Russian military and Wagner, and they're kind of jockeying for position. And you do this with an authoritarian boss because he's trying to keep people off balance, and that's an intentional strategy from where Putin is. So it's a very weird thing. But the good side is that's going to cost in military effectiveness, no doubt about it. So I'm very glad to see it. Prigozhin was blaming the defense chiefs for losses. And then you also had on last Saturday the oil tank hit by the Ukrainian drone. Shortly thereafter, what's his name? Colonel McGregor was saying, "Oh, this is no big deal. It's not going to affect anything. It's not going to hinder the Army's effectiveness." It might not, but it might hinder the Navy's effectiveness. It might also put them on alert and say, "Yeah, we got to back things up." So there's the hitting the drone or hitting the oil tank is a very, very good thing for Ukraine. Sunday, April 30th, Zelensky was praising border guards. Counteroffensives are about to begin. The newspapers are saying it and saying it and saying it. I don't know when it's going to begin, but they keep saying it. More Prigozhin threatening the withdrawal. Ukrainian shelling of a village kills 4 in Bryansk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That's in Russian territory. Ukraine's received, according to NATO, Ukraine has now received 98% of promised combat vehicles, and so that's a really good thing. So we're getting to that place where it's about to kick off. I don't know what will happen when it does or where it will. I'm not in the prediction business like that, but they're almost ready. 25 were killed in Russian air raids because the Russians are still terrorizing the population. They claim anything that they don't like is a terrorist attack on them, but they don't mind terrorizing the population. And then finally, on last Sunday, there was another article that the Holy See, that's the papacy, the Pope, was working to help return Ukrainian children. That's a positive sign. Okay, Monday, 1st of May, counteroffensive is still coming, and we don't know exactly when, but it seems like it's right around the corner. We had the Ukraine ammunition depot was reportedly hit by Russian missile attacks. There's Pavlorod was one place, and then there was another one that Colonel McGregor was talking about that was a rail station that he claimed that so many tons of stuff was blown up, but I couldn't find it anywhere in Western media. I did see it in RT, so I'm a little skeptical about it. Now, there was this fascinating article, more than 20,000 Russian soldiers killed in 5 months. In the last 5 months. And then with that, 100,000 total casualties over the last 5 months. And you look at that and you say that's on top of the previous 100,000 and change from before that, from November or December's estimates. And so it's piling up for Russia. Now, I don't know what Ukraine's estimates are, and that could be bad as well. But I don't think it's as bad as the Russians, just because, like, for example, much of that damage was from Wagner in Bakhmut. And when you send not really well-trained convicts, just send them forward, they're getting slaughtered. The oil depot strike was apparently preparation for a counteroffensive. And then you had this really interesting thing on Monday as well, where a UN resolution, it was not condemning, the point of the resolution wasn't to condemn Russia, but they mentioned it in the process that they called Russia an aggressor. and China, Brazil, and India all voted for it, which is really interesting because they're the BRICS that are all usually right there with Russia. So it was interesting. Only the Russian Federation, Belarus, Nicaragua, Syria, and North Korea voted against it. That was also the same day, on Monday, that Speaker McCarthy was asked by the Russian journalist in Israel. He was asked about, well, are you going to stop the flow of weapons into Ukraine? And he said, no, 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 I support Ukraine. I vote for Ukraine, and you should get out. And that was a pretty good endorsement coming from the speaker. He's the one that was talking about the blank check just 5 months ago, 6 months ago. So that's a good sign. Okay, Tuesday, Putin was canceling the Victory Day public celebrations. And this was before the drone strike that you're seeing this. He was starting to cancel these things. Now, I think he's starting to cancel these things, and there's two reasons that really were grabbing me. One, what munitions are you going to trot out? What weapons are you going to... Okay, you can bring out the nuclear weapons. How many tanks do you still have floating around that you can, that you're going to put into that parade? But more important than that was this idea that people might be getting concerned, or during the parade where you're walking through the streets holding up your relative's sign in the procession, which is really an interesting process, right? You walk through the streets with holding up your grandfather's World War II picture, and you become part of the immortal procession in that process. He's concerned that they might be holding up pictures of relatives from Ukraine, and if they do that, this could kick off and go very bad. Look at what happened to Ceausescu in Romania, and just one person start booing, and the whole crowd turned, and Putin's really nervous about that kind of thing, and I think he should be. I don't know that there's going to be a mass uprising, but it's a possibility that he wants to avoid at all costs. Okay, Russia claims to have struck that railway station in Kramatorsk. I just talked about that, and again, I couldn't find anything about that. Bakhmut still holds, and that's where we are. Wednesday, drone attacks on the Kremlin. Now, the drone attacks were really interesting, and we can't figure it out yet. Zelensky denied it immediately. Russia calls it an assassination attempt. Like, we got to do something about checking on the vocabulary. I'm going to do a whole video on just about the vocabulary. Like, here's what a terrorist act is. Here's what an assassination attempt is. Here is what an act of war is, or whatever. And just work our way through, because when you do, then you can stop confounding terms or leading us the wrong direction. It's almost like a lawyer asking, somebody hits another car at, say, 20 miles an hour. The first lawyer wants to say, well, when he slammed into you, and the other lawyer wants to say, when you tapped him, right? So you have to be careful with the language that is chosen, because it steers your mind a particular direction. Okay, so I don't know. I can't answer if it's false flag or partisans or what. I just don't have the facts, but I'm trying to understand it myself. Multiple drone attacks in the last few days. And so just having the Crimea and other places, the Moscow, and there's 3 or 4 in the last few days, just that will back the Russians up a little bit. And that's a good sign before we get into the counteroffensive. Now, we also have the Russian State Duma chairman calling for weapons that will destroy Kyiv. We got to do this and just destroy the whole city. And we're going to do something worse to you. Like, really? What are you going to do worse? Short of nuclear weapons, which they're not going to use. West must not stay silent about the drone attack, but they won't admit anything, says RT. And RT was flipping out. Prigozhin says the counteroffensive has started, and Kyiv has unlimited men and ammunition. I think that kind of language is there to build them up so that it's not that big of a thing when the counteroffensive goes well for Ukraine, and they've built up Kyiv to be this big monster that, okay, well, that's why we got shellacked because of that. I think that's what's going on, but I'm not exactly sure. This is just my opinion. I can't prove that. RFK Jr. blames Zelensky and the neocons in the Biden White House for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He's not good. If you support Ukraine, you should definitely not be supporting RFK Jr. Even if you're flamingly liberal on that side, you should not be supporting him if you're in support of Ukraine. As far as a false flag or counteroffensive, ISW is a great source, and they think it's a false flag operation. But on the other side, Anders Puck Nielsen, and anything that he says, I listen to. He's well worth listening to. Says he doesn't think that's what it is. He thinks it's got to be maybe a partisan something. Now, if it's a partisan attack, that could come out in a number of flavors, right? It could come out as Ukrainians on the ground, and there are plenty of Ukrainians running around in Russia, voluntarily or involuntarily. There could be Russians that are trying to oppose their own government. Oligarchs might be out behind it. FSB might be. So there could be a lot of variation there, but I don't know. I'm just saying these are the options. Okay, Thursday, White House dismisses the claim that the U.S. planned a drone strike. I mean, RT was saying the U.S. is behind it. They're pulling the strings. Kremlin's crazy about this kind of thing, and they are really losing it. Yeah, Maria Zakharova was talking about how the White House is fueling Kyiv's sense of impunity. Really? You're going to talk about a sense of impunity? Okay, anyway, The Guardian, they were on the side of it doesn't look like a false flag operation, just like Anders Puck Nielsen. But again, I don't know, and I can't tell you what I don't know. Friday, Bill Clinton said something that I thought was really discouraging. That is, he came out was saying that we knew in 2011 that Putin would attack Ukraine. And the background was that he met Putin at, I think it was Davos, and Putin said at the time, I think that what you did, the deal that you made with my boss, was wrong. We're talking about the Budapest Memorandum, and I'm not going to honor it. And he came out and said that. And so Clinton knew that from that point forward, but nobody was really preparing. And it was only a few years later, 2014, where you saw what you saw with the Maidan Revolution and seizing Crimea and whatever else. And so it's really painful to think that we knew about this and like didn't really prepare like we should have. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's terrible. Prigozhin says he'll pull out of Ukraine, but we don't know yet. I mean, is it a feint? He says he's going to pull out on the 10th because he's not supplied with the weapons to be able to get things accomplished by the 9th like he was ordered to, and so he's still fighting with the military. But is that a feint? Is that we're going to pull out and then the Ukrainians pull back and then they have more? We just got to be careful with that. Bakhmut's still holding fine, and then Ukraine coins the term Russism, which I think is absolutely fabulous. I'm probably going to do a whole video just on what Russism is. Russism is Russia and fascism pushed into one word, and it will compete with the Nazi narrative, and it will compete with both Nazism and Stalinism and Russism as these just terrible, despicable, totalitarian, evil dictatorship kind of things. And yeah, I'm already preparing. I already have a half dozen articles for that. Saturday, that's today, talks of Black Sea grain deal seem to have fallen apart, at least so far. And the Kremlin is fearing an attack on the Victory Day parade. I think they should be worried about it. I don't think that anything from Ukraine will come in, but there could be either partisan or some kind of extra drama that Putin drums up. I think one of the ways to tell, and again, this is me speculating, one of the ways to tell if this is partisan or whether it is a false flag operation is what happens. Are laws drawn up in the Duma that are going to cause mobilization or things, banner waving, patriotic fervor, restriction of rights, those kind of things? If that happens, it looks more false flaggy to my mind, but I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. All right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me for another 15 minutes. I'm sorry that I had to cut the thing short earlier, but it is what it is. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.